It is the world's #1 sports and recreation podcast, Cheap Heat. I'm your forever 24/7 champion. Today, as of today, married 1 year, forever 24/7 champion, Peter Rosenberg. Thank you. Thank you. And SGG decided to celebrate the occasion by dressing up in the way like Tony Atlas would dress for the occasion. Well, I guess it depends how you look at that.
There's no feet over here.
No feet, not a non-feet situation, but SGG rocking his tank top. So if you're getting to consume this on YouTube, you're welcome, ladies. You're welcome.
It's a heat wave.
It's a heat wave.
I'm bringing the heat.
That's right. The physically large stat guy, Greg, coming to us from Philadelphia. Dipperstein is hoping to join us, but he is dealing with a flooding situation of sorts. There's a pipe has burst at Dipper Lago. He's doing his best. You guys, listen. You can only imagine what this. I wish we could hear him, like when the plumber is there. Wouldn't you like to hear the conversation? Wouldn't that be the content? Maybe that's a Patreon only. You know,
it would be fantastic content.
God, don't you want to hear what that conversation sounds like? Anyways, maybe we'll. He said the guy's there right now. God, I wanna call in and just hear what it sounds like. Anyways, hopefully we'll hear from Dipperstein, and get to him because there's a lot going on in the world of professional wrestling. Last week, you might have heard us on Patreon. If you don't, you should go to patreon.com/staymage, where we got everybody ready for Money in the Bank. Our guest on last week's show, Chad Gable, had a big showing and show out at Money in the Bank. There are probably some people who could argue he was the MVP. It would be fair and in the conversation. Also, on last week's Patreon show, we did not get into the recent events regarding one Maxwell Jacob Friedman, who is back to his terrible guy ways. So we should also get to that as well. As we're recording this, there's an NXT Heatwave situation going on as we speak. SGG, have you been dialed in at all?
I'm up to the women's match right now, the Women's North American Championship match. Sol Ruka and Kelani Jordan. And listen, I feel like there was a lot of criticism when we first heard that WWE was going to be looking at collegiate athletes and, not going so heavy on the indie wrestlers. I'm sure you remember that conversation. And
oh, sure.
But at least as far as these two are concerned, that gamble is paying off. I won't go so far as to say they're the best women's wrestlers in the world, but the progress that they've made since joining the Performance Center, and there's only going to be more to come, it shows that, that gamble has definitely paid off for WWE.
No, listen, I think without question, it is already sort of paid dividends. Like, I do understand why on paper it's not necessarily my favorite thing, but like, I'll be honest, like I'm the kind of person, everything sort of big and corporate is not my favorite thing. And this was like, but this is a smart decision in terms of the access to talent that you will have. I mean, listen, I love that maybe the most, dominant woman, and she's appeared to completely derail at Heatwave tonight. I love that Roxanne is such a wrestler from a wrestling background.
Right.
Like she's the definition of it, but not everyone's going to be that. And, she was dealing with Lola Vice, it comes from the sports world. So you're at 100% SGG. A lot of upside to a lot of that talent, 100%. Anyways, let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it and start with Money in the Bank. Biggest takeaway, I guess, guys, the interesting part here is the number one takeaway you have from Money in the Bank has nothing to do with the Money in the Bank PLE that we knew about. It has only to do with John Cena appearing and announcing his retirement, saying that basically he's going to go on one last run and that WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas will be his last as a WWE superstar. SGG, your level of surprise of the whole thing.
Very surprised. I mean, the shock hit me as soon as he came on screen and I read his shirt or at the towel actually, and I was like, "Oh, the last time is now," is what the towel said. And then I'm just like, "What does this all mean?" And then he goes in the ring and he clarifies that the next Rumble will be his last, the next Mania will be his last. Um, and then he goes on at the press conference and says that next year is going to be his last year, and then at the end of December, he's out, he's done. And so it's a day that we never thought would actually come, because most wrestlers, they don't throw out that word, that retirement word, or they do it like he said, they say they're retired, but then that really is just to do a bit of business, and then they'll be back. In Mick Foley's case, I think it was like 3 weeks. In Drew McIntyre's case, it was by the next Friday.
Well, and by the way, there's nothing written in stone to say that John Cena is going to be the exception to the rule.
No, but the way he is speaking about this, it sounds very much like he will be the exception to the rule. I mean, Shawn Michaels was a long time exception to that rule. He famously did not come back until it was time to have a never before had match at a Saudi show, and then DX versus the Brothers of Destruction. But even then, I don't see John Cena coming back for that.
And what a great decision it was to come back for that masterpiece.
Yes,
everybody loved it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would, now that you have that in the record books. Actually, I'll tell you, there's only one books where that match mattered, and it was in Mr. Michael's Bank of America account. In which case, I think it did quite well.
Oh yeah,
no one was concerned
Great.
about any of the botches at the bank. So no, listen, I hear what you're saying, and there is something about sort of Cena and the way that he carries himself that makes you think it probably will be the end. I think it's important we spend some time on John Cena's career and also the hopes for what we're going to get now. Listen, he said he's going to be around when Raw goes to Netflix in January.
Yep.
He said he's going to be at Elimination Chamber. He said he'll be at Rumble.
Yep.
Elimination Chamber.
Yep.
And Mania.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean he can't add any more between now and then. And we don't know the amount of TV that he will do between now and then.
Right. Because and he said too, next year he's planning to do, I think he said 30 to 50 or 30 to 40 dates. So that's a good amount of time if you think like, once a week, some PLEs, January to December. So we could see Cena all over the place. I'm wondering if he does any house shows. Does he go back to that White Plains Arena that seats a couple thousand, like literally like 2,000, and bow out there? Does he go back to Chicago one more time? And who does he face, P? That's the thing. Who does he face on the farewell tour?
Well, who does he face? Who does he beat? He got to get some wins. What is the story here? Like this. Obviously, this is a different situation than the way Ric Flair retired. Ric Flair gave us this retirement angle. When I lose, I'll retire. Right? Cena has a built-in story in the sense that the man just has not won matches. Like John Cena has to win again. So I wonder, like, do they forget about that?
He did not forget about that. I can tell you.
What did he give any other intimation, SGG, in the presser or anything in terms of where he could go, or he's just did he acknowledge that he has not been good?
Yeah, he said a direct quote from him was, "I can't remember the last time I won a match." And I believe the last time he won a match was the
Saudi,
last
right?
SmackDown. Who did he face in Saudi?
I thought we looked it up recently and we saw that.
I thought it was that last SmackDown that he faced. He teamed up with Kevin Owens and he faced Roman and Sami Zayn.
Oh, yes, he did. He did win that in that tag match.
Yeah, and then we get that famous quote from Roman the next week on SmackDown, which was, "I didn't lose, he lost." He points at Sami Zayn because Sami was the one who was pinned.
It says here, let's see. I see one thing that says he had 6 wins in 2023. I wonder how many of those were televised, if that's real.
Oh, John Cena and LA Knight at Fastlane against Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa, October 2023.
Win?
Win. Yep, that was a victory. Some SmackDown wins. There was also a win this year on the Monday Night Raw. I believe it was the Raw after Mania. I forgot about this one. He teamed up with R-Truth and The Miz to defeat Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and Dominic Mysterio. So, I mean, okay, John, we saw you win this year, Raw after Mania.
But in terms of a singles match,
Yeah.
his last singles match?
September 29th, 2023, in a victory over Dominic Mysterio. Oh, these are dark matches. Televised.
It says Cena's last televised victory was Crown Jewel 2018. He had 3 televised matches. He lost to Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse, Roman Reigns at SummerSlam 21, and Austin Theory at Mania 39. Has he had a singles win since then? I don't think so, SGG.
No. I'm looking at his record right now.
All of this to say, and again, you have faith in Triple H being the guy. You got to tell a story with John Cena, man. Do not just make the whole thing. He's picking his shots. I'm going to have a match with Carmelo Hayes. Now I'm going to have one last match with Randy Orton. Like, SGG, I want a story. I want him to go out with a story. Even if the story's about the retirement, I'm good with that. But then let me have someone who's stalking him. Maybe a heel Carmelo Hayes is stalking him, being like, it should be me. It should be me. He's costing him matches. He's tormenting something. I don't just want it to be manufactured matches that we have at each PLE. I want a John Cena story.
Yeah, I would like for John Cena to sort of say, look, they've been calling me the GOAT. This is my last chance to prove it. And we watch him literally start at the bottom and work his way potentially to the top, to a championship match, to a main event. And people are like, oh, does he get 17? Does he retire with 17? And then the chips fall where they may. But like, the stigma for him has been, even though this is not true, that, you know, he was sort of slotted in at the top and stayed there. So let him work his way up. Let him go through. If he has to form a tag team with a random and feud with Pretty Deadly for a few weeks, let him do it. Let us see John Cena do the My Rise all 2025 until he gets back to that main event spot, and then he can say, I am the GOAT. I've earned this title that people have bestowed upon me.
I'm not mad at that. No matter what we get, though, I just want us to have some sort of real story here, and I hope we get some meaningful John Cena wins. I hope he does lots of TV. I would love to have it just be like, I would love him to be part of TV, SGG, where it's not just he does 5 TVs between now and December, and each time it's sort of just starting the show with a promo. You know what I mean? I want him to feel, I'd like to feel like he's back before he's gone. Come back, John. Come all the way back before you go, baby. We need you here.
And by all the way back, you know, we saw at the presser, he went over, he took a bunch of questions. There was one point where, you know, they stopped giving the mic to the reporters, but John Cena was having them just yell out questions at him and he answered them. Give us more of that. So while you're in a given mood, come all the way back. We got a seat for you at the Cheap Heat podcast. Come talk to us, John.
We are, by the way, very overdue. I don't know. The last time I sat with John Cena in any real way, I mean, it might have been like sat with him. It might have been when he did Juan Ep 10, 15 years ago. Otherwise, I have a bunch of interviews with him, but they're all standing somewhere with me holding a microphone. They're not Like last year when he was doing his promo, Sam got like a 45-minute, hour-long
Yeah.
sit down. We never had that on Cheap Heat. He's never been on Cheap Heat in a real way. So I would love to get that opportunity to talk to him. I've had some wonderful interviews with him that were not televised, just me sitting there peppering him with questions. Unfortunately, those were just recorded in my brain, and guess what? Tapes erased. I don't even remember what happened, but it did happen. So anyways, obviously huge news there. John Cena retiring, and then it leads to the GOAT talk. Where do we place John Cena in the all-time annals of wrestling? And Dipperstein, we've had this argument with him a lot, and it's a shame he's dealing with what he's dealing with right now, because I find it to be such a shocking take of his that he ends up like putting Cena on his Mount Rushmore, which I find to be like, don't you find that to be so counter? You know what it reminds me of, SGG?
From Dip, that is crazy. If someone else said it, I wouldn't bat an eye.
You wouldn't bat an eye
twice about it.
But
From
no,
Dip, that's insane.
Like I had a friend in college, still have a friend. We're buddies still. My buddy Jim McGee. That's right. His name is Jim McGee. Okay? Jim McGee, he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. All right?
Relation to Tits?
Any relation to Tits? No. But
Okay.
but an appreciation. Sure, certainly.
Okay.
But we called him Jim Scranton McGee. I mean, that's American Pie right there, right? Yeah. Jimmy Scranton McGee. Good old boy, nice quality individual. Grew up loving Notre Dame football, loves sports, just basic classic American guy. And there were a couple of things about Jim McGee that made no sense. Jim McGee, was it a baseball or a football? I think it was like a foot, and I think it was a baseball. Damn it! Now I got to get this right.
Can we call Jim?
Well, I gotta ask. I'm gonna text Jody and Jeff and get them to tell me. It was either a football or a baseball. He just couldn't throw it. Like, didn't know how to. I think it's a baseball.
Which, that's worse than a football.
I think you're right.
Baseball, not being able to throw a baseball is worse than not being able to throw a football.
And yeah, like exactly. If you're not a particularly good quarterback, it makes sense. But when you like try to throw a baseball and like you look like 50 Cent or Baba Booey throwing out the first pitch, yeah, it looks like, where did you even grow up, bro?
Yeah.
Not Scranton. Not Scranton, not Jim McGee. And another thing about Jim McGee, he hated mashed potatoes.
What?
I was like, you can't hate mashed potatoes. You're Jimmy Scranton McGee.
No.
Every day it should be a piece of meatloaf and mashed potatoes right on that plate, baby.
We'll let you slide a steak in there every once in a while.
Only if it's a Salisbury steak. It's got to be a Salisbury steak.
The mashed potatoes got to be there.
It has to be. That's the thing about Dip. Dip, of all people, when Zach Linder gets emotional talking about John Boy and how much he loves John. And
Zach Linder, who was there, by the way,
he was probably crying into his Mets hat. Listen, it makes sense coming from Zach. I mean, I don't know why he treats John the way he does, but he's like obsessed with the guy and thinks he's awesome. Dipperstein, when you think about what Dip values in wrestling, obviously he should have a great appreciation for John Cena because John Cena loves wrestling and thinks it's great. Yeah. But you would just think that SGG, from the style of how he wrestles to like the sort of obvious look of his gimmick that has never changed, like to the sort of modern day superstar that he is, you would just think Dipperstein would be the opposite. Would be like, what?
No, see, I'm sorry to chime in, guys, but
please chime away.
Knowing the great Dipperstein, you can get a sense that John Cena is as old school as it gets in regards to Dip's fandom, in regards to storytelling. a character that never went heel after he had this meteoric babyface rise, carried the company on his back, represented the red, white, and blue. He was Hogan and Jace.
It's a good argument by you. It's
It's all facts, by the way.
It's a very good. There was one thing you said in there that I didn't agree with, but I can't really pinpoint specifically what it was.
Was it when he said he's as old school as it gets?
Yeah, it was the never changing. Dip definitely is annoyed that he never changed. No, I mean, I honestly, there's no way to, in my opinion, there is no way to be a wrestling fan and not be disappointed that John Cena hasn't had a heel run. There's, I don't care. It's like a streak that
And
at
a main event heel run, by the way. We're not talking about the raps and the bars and he came out and diss whoever in the throwback jerseys.
No.
That was an incredible heel run too.
But he wasn't John Cena yet.
We're talking about a main event.
Well, it just run. Yeah, it would be like going back to him, you know, when he was on the indies. Like, we're talking about John Cena. Once he put on the matching shirts and hats, I'll really start that as like the ultimate babyface run. Like, the first John Cena shirt that I own, and I don't know where it is, I got to find it, is the classic black, the original black and white Hustle, Loyalty, and Respect shirt. I'm not
have the dog on the back.
I don't remember if is it a dog or dog tags. I don't remember what's on the back. But it's the main. Not they did one later that had colors in it. It's just black and white. Hustle, Loyalty, Respect. The original, like, it's his first. I think it's his first big shirt. I won't even start the babyface run there. I'm saying once he got into the straight Fruity Pebbles era, we never from that point on got that moment. And to me, SGG, and I don't blame John for this, obviously, I don't. But I do see it as a demerit on his all-time record for me. Like, I gotta know how it would have been. Like, isn't that part of how we rate all of our favorites? How were they as a baby
on both
face?
sides of the ball?
I mean, think about it. On our Mount Rushmore, the names that we talk about: Rock, Austin, Hogan, Shawn, Brett, Triple H, Undertaker. You go through the list, basically all of them. And modern day, certainly, your Randys, Jerichos, all of those, Edge. You look at the way they played both. SGG, to me, it is such a gap that John just doesn't have that. And we all think it may have been way better than his babyface run.
Yeah. The things we've heard about what his mindset was and what he would have had planned, there's no way for me to say it would have been better, but I did want to see it. Like, I was intrigued. You know what I mean? I did want to know what it would be like to see it on the TV screen, to be in the arena when the image comes through. You talk about him never changing his look. I think I remember it was Chris Hero on an old episode of Cheap Heat talking about John Cena was going to completely change up his look and do like a singlet, possibly like a robe, and come out and just really be a completely different guy as a heel, still in the main event scene. And like I said, damn it, I want to see it. I don't think we will now, but I would have loved to see it.
I remember that conversation with Chris Hero and hearing about that, like, it was close. You hear these stories, and I guess if we get him on
Cheap gear made.
Yeah, if we get him on Cheap Heat, that's what I want to ask. When were you the closest, you know? And how close was it? That's what I would like to know, because it's just such a bummer to me. It's such a huge what if, and we sort of fantasy booked it. We've done it on this show, certainly. I know we've done it recently. But the idea of John coming out, his character is so perfected. It's so cultivated into who this good guy is, that the smallest tweaks would have been fascinating. Like if John Cena came out and simply didn't do the towel gimmick, didn't run to the ring, wore pants. Like he could do, didn't wear a baseball hat. There are so many things he could do that just one little bit you'd go, ooh, is something awry? Is something amiss with John Cena? And it would have been so cool. Maybe there's a world in which they do something interesting here. But I can't imagine SGG at this point we get a moment like that.
Can you imagine if he showed up in a suit last night?
Dude.
He's comfortable in suits. He does media
all the time,
all over the place. He's always immaculate in the suit. Can you imagine if he does that same thing that we got last night in a suit? And I love the John Cena long rah hype him up promo, but can you imagine if like he comes out in a suit, he walks down to the ring, then he pulls out the towel that says the last time is now, and then just leaves that in the ring and then walks out?
It would have been just him coming out and you seeing the suit. Everyone would go, what is going on here? And then maybe he still ends up cutting a relatively babyface promo. But within there are just a couple of spots where you're like, wait a second. Did he? So, to me, John Cena is obviously an all-time great.
Yeah.
He's a WWE lifer. First of all, he's a beginning to end. At no point in his true professional career was he anywhere else, which already puts you in sort of rarefied air.
It's not a lot of people that can say that. Like there's Orton, Roman,
Rock.
Yeah, then
Seth so far. Still a lot of time though. So he's an absolute all-timer. Where would I put him? Now, you can get into different conversations. What does Mount Rushmore mean?
Yeah.
I think Mount Rushmore means the 4 biggest and best ever. That's what I see. That's Mount Rushmore.
Because this is how Zach Linder interpreted Mount Rushmore. I want to find it.
No. This is what he says the true definition of the actual Mount Rushmore is.
He gave two, and he put Cena in both, I believe. He said if you're going by eras,
no, but yeah,
Bruno,
he says
Hogan, Austin, Cena.
Right.
By eras. If you're going by eras, I would completely drop Bruno because the pre-Hulkamania era is just like, we respect the pioneers, but let's be real about the pioneers.
But no, why would you drop Bruno though? He was the name of professional wrestling.
He was the name of WWE for like 15 years. NWA certainly had some other names coming up and down around that same time, but just because like people respect Bruno's place in wrestling history, he's foundational. But the thing about the foundation is that it's everything above the foundation that people look at and say, oh, this is impressive. This is a beautiful house. This is a wonderful statue. He's foundational, absolutely necessary. We needed Bruno. But if we're talking about the biggest and the awe-inspiring and the spectacle that is WWE, it's what happened after Bruno. So I would drop him and I would put in, maybe a Rock, maybe a Brett, maybe a HBK, but I would remove Bruno. But he talked about how the presidents were chosen for Mount Rushmore. He says they were chosen to represent the country's birth, growth, development, and preservation. So on that basis, Bruno, Hogan, Austin, Taker is the correct answer according to him. And I would disagree again because Bruno was not the champion at WWE's birth. They needed Buddy Rogers to defect from the NWA as champion. He famously brought his belt over from the NWA. That was the first quote unquote WWE championship. It was in the shape of the United States. And he actually is there for the founding of this company, the birth of this company. So again, Bruno, on that basis, I would drop him out. I would put in Buddy Rogers, the true first. I won't just skip him over, turn him into a footnote.
Well, and this is also making it only WWE, obviously.
Right.
You're also
Well, are we doing John Cena's place in WWE or in wrestling history?
Well, I mean, both I guess are relevant. But keep going. Well, at this point, we're doing WWE only, it seems, which is probably for the sake of argument an easier conversation.
Yeah, and in that case, I don't know if I would put Cena at Rushmore, but definitely top tier. If we go with our branding, the tiers of Mage, I would definitely put him top tier.
Who did you have in your original top tier? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I know Brett was there.
Shocking. We know that.
Brett, Rock, Austin. I believe Cena might have been there.
You might have already had him there. I don't know, man. I really. It's. I guess the thing is here's the issue I struggle with John so much, and I feel bad because I love the man. But when I'm rating him among the other greats, the best comp you probably want to come to is Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
But he was never, to me, and I know the merch will tell you differently, and I know how long he was the top guy, but there's a je ne sais quoi that he never achieved that was Hogan-like to me.
Right.
That joke conversation we always have of, oh, wrestling, like Hulk Hogan? Some people might say like John Cena, but not anywhere to the depth of the way they do with Hulk Hogan. And
I think that's generational, sadly.
I think Hulk Hogan still would get that more now than John Cena does.
I think the Skibbity kids won't say Hulk Hogan. The Skibbities.
The Skibbities might be on to John
They're going to go John Cena.
But Hogan's run, it lasted a long time, well beyond his career. I mean, you're talking about from like, it might have been from 85 to 20. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about a long, long run where I think he'd be like people's default. And then when I get into the wrestling part of it, like I know this is maybe the really fun argument to have. I just think Hogan is like a markedly better wrestler than John Cena. Like I in terms of like when I watch him, feeling what he's doing in the ring, you know, like John Cena is more athletic than Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
We could basically call them a wash when it comes to physique, right? They're both in tremendous shape. They both looked great. Both looked great throughout their career. Never really an off time for either of them. They looked awesome. Cena's the better talker. You know, in terms of like you throw someone a microphone without a script and just want them to go, I'm trusting Cena 10 times out of 10 over Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely.
Not even close. I mean, Hogan promos don't even make sense. You go back and watch them now, you're like, was this guy a babyface? He's screaming like a lunatic. I don't even understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But when we get to the bread and butter, that what they did in the ring, how they overcame the odds to somehow always beat the bad guy no matter what the situation was. You show me Hogan at his best versus Cena at his best. That hulking up for me to this day, like right now, you know, SUG, when the sweat got so bad, the hair is all stringy, and he's walking around in a circle, hulking up, and he's rubbing his face, and he's like there's an energy there to me that for whatever reason is just at a higher level than Cena getting to his Hulk up, if you will, and then hitting his moveset. It just, maybe I was too old at the time in which I consumed it. I'm open to that. Like, there's a nostalgia part of us and Hulk Hogan that you kind of can't remove. Like, some of our greatest memories as a child involve him. Like you can't, whatever. But even to this day, like when I watch something later, like I don't know that John has a match that I love as much as even Hogan Rock. Like even then, and Hogan's doing nothing then, SUG. I mean, he's really just walking around. He's whipping with the belt. I mean, you're talking about a leg drop. There's not much.
Yeah.
But there was just something there that to me, I would always take Hogan over Cena. But the fact that we're even having that conversation, to me, is what I hope if John Cena were to hear this conversation. I hope that's what he would take from it. The fact that we would sit here and go, is he as good as Hulk Hogan? Is he as good as Steve Austin or The Rock? The fact is, I think with most of those guys, we would probably land at he's just behind them. But damn it, that's a pretty good place to be. I mean, he's, as you said, SUG, he's top tier. I think he might be at the bottom of that top tier, but man, it's an unbelievable run, unbelievable popularity. His transformation into a mainstream star has been seamless. He's a quality human being. What can you say? What can you possibly, what negative is there to say about John Cena beyond the fact that, yeah, like his actual in-ring wrestling is not my absolute cup of tea. But besides that, SUG, to me, he's basically as perfect a superstar as you could have.
Yeah, I would agree. And I want to throw this out there too. You talked about Hulk Hogan hulking up and that energy being unmatched. I would say that away game Cena, that energy that he brought when he was walking in with the title to defend against a hometown hero, whether that was Edge in Toronto or Punk in Chicago or RVD at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Like when he walked out and he didn't do his shtick and he didn't like do the salute and run to the ring and he just walked out stone-faced, ready for what he knew was the fight of his life. That's up there in terms of just like that energy that you bring to the ring. And that's before the bell even rings and the match even starts. Just like, because at that point, Cena was sort of polarizing. You got half cheers, half boos. But when he went in for that away game and those truly hostile crowds, because it wasn't just one, it was a bunch of people at a bunch of different times in his career, those truly hostile crowds, those ended up being the best performances. And, you mentioned Rock Hogan, that Money in the Bank against CM Punk in Chicago, that goes up there with anybody's, main match that you think about. You think about Bret Hart and Steve Austin. That Punk Cena at Money in the Bank is up there with a Hart Austin or a Hogan Andre or a Roman and Brock, or like any of those matches that you think are like, this is the one that made these two guys. That one is in that conversation.
That match is obviously when I think about him, it's one of the first things I think about. The sort of sauce around that match was incredible. Though I will tell you, when you watch the match, there are physical things that happen in it right away that I'm like, oh, it's not my. It's like there just seem to be a couple little basic traits, and we've talked about them many times on this nerdy ass podcast. There are just a couple of very basic things that John did or didn't do in the ring, SGG, that just to me kept him like not quite that guy. Just sort of a natural thing. Like, I don't know. He just didn't have. There was always a clunkiness to John's in-ring work. Even when he was incredibly athletic, right? And like, the attitude adjustment's fantastic. Actually, let's talk about that. What would you say is his? What's the ultimate move? Is it "You Can't See Me"? I guess that has to be the thing.
That's the one that definitely like it went into. That one took him to another level. Yeah, it's his crotch chop. It's his hulking up. It's his thing. So I think that's the one that you do it and people recognize it right away. The 5-knuckle shuffle, but I would say, yeah, it's one of his 5 moves, right? It's either the 5-knuckle shuffle or the attitude adjustment or the STF or the STFU, whichever one he's using. But it's one of those are like the quintessential John Cena move. But there was a time when he was facing AJ, when he was pulling out like Hurricane Ranas and Frankensteiners and Canadian destroyers. So like,
I mean, but you almost put that in this. That's almost the same as those old clips of Hogan in Japan.
It is.
There was a little bit of novelty to it, but I appreciated him doing it.
Yeah.
Also, SGG, as we're recording this, are you seeing the title change in NXT?
I'm not there yet. Who?
I think we have to mention it. Amelia, you want to tell us what happened?
Oh, it was one of the smartest finishes I've ever seen. So Trick Williams throws the knee and gets pulled out of the ring by Sean Spears. Ethan Page gets knocked out, falls on Javon Evans. 1, 2, 3. It was incredible.
Back to the conversation that we were having the other day about the way call-ups have been treated on the main roster. Listen, guys, I don't watch a ton of NXT. You both watch more than I do. Tell me if I'm wrong, though. Is it fair to say that in the last year or two, the main titles in NXT have lost a little bit of luster or haven't been treated the exact same way? And by the way, I don't know if I even would have said that before tonight, but even just taking it off of Trick already, I just feel like they're like down a peg from where we were in what was maybe the prime era of the NXT titles being meaningful.
I think because they are relying so much on it being true developmental, they're taking certain risks that they wouldn't have taken before when it was just like super indie. The crowds need to get this 45-minute main event with a lot of false finishes and packing the moves. And so we need ring generals that are able to do that. And so now it's like they sort of go back and forth between a person who is very capable in the ring and then a person who is developing and needs those reps at the top of the card, and sort of like bouncing back and forth between that and then letting that be the philosophy, because they're leaning on it being a true developmental and saying that like, just because they're a champion doesn't mean they're ready to go main event WrestleMania or be like close out the Saturday night or whatever the case may be. They still have a way to go, but the crowd's behind them. There's some progress. People are invested. And so we're going to return that investment with a championship.
I agree. For every Braun Breaker and Trick Williams, you need a Carmelo Hayes and Ethan Page to balance out the scales for that championship.
Yeah, no, I guess you're right. I'm looking back now at recent history and seeing like where I feel like if that's a valid feeling to even have, or if it's sort of more situational.
Well, it is the developmental. Once they started to do the NXT 2.0, that's what it became. It was the feeder system. It's like, all right, let's get these NIL athletes ready at the PC. We get them on TV. We let them figure this out in real time. We let them organically grow their fan base via social media. And then we see what they can do in a larger setting, i.e. Tiffany Stratton.
After Dolph Ziggler had it a couple years ago now, Braun went on his run. Carmelo. Ilya felt faster, but now that I look back, actually, it was from September 30th all the way to Mania. And then Trick had it from Mania till now, which is not long. I guess maybe also I was a little surprised that they put it on Trick that quickly. I mean, it's 1 year after Carmelo had it. I don't know why. There's no way for me to justify this feeling except a feeling. I didn't feel like Trick was champion yet at the time in which he won the title. Like, I felt like he was still North American picture kind of champ.
Well, who else would you have slotted into that slot other than Trick Williams? Tony D'Angelo.
Yeah, I know.
Who's Mage too, by the way.
By the way, no,
He's
I like
another guy
Tony.
who developed fast.
No, I like Tony D'Angelo, but I hear what you're saying. But like, is he champion or like?
Well, also too, what are we considering a developmental brand champion as well?
It looks different at different points, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll tell you one thing that is funny though. Isn't it funny for like all the bravado that exists in terms of like the AEW is nothing to WWE conversation? They sure don't treat the people who come over from there that way.
Yeah,
They really don't. Like, if y'all were trying to make the point of like, you come over here, you ain't well, Cody Rhodes showed up like he was God, and All Ego was here for 5 minutes before, and he's champion now. So
Jade, they built
I mean,
a kingdom around Jade.
It's a very interesting thing because, like, in one sense, you're doing it to kind of try to sun them, but in another sense, you're giving them such massive treatment that how do you view it as anything except kind of giving them credit to some extent. Now, speaking of which, before we get to that, do want to mention the Money in the Bank of it all. We nailed the women's. Shout out to Chelsea Green, by the way, for that incredible spot at the end of the women's match. Already been loving. Emilio and I were just talking last week about how we want to get Chelsea Green on the show, and then she had a huge weekend. She was awesome. Tiffany Stratton wins. Not a huge surprise there. The men's Money in the Bank. Someone pick Drew, right? You picked Drew?
Of course I did. Didn't I tell you? Drew's gonna win it, cash in, and then we get Punk ruining the whole thing.
Are we officially at the point now where that was the last thing Punk can ruin?
Yeah, he has to. They have to be on a collision course for Cleveland and SummerSlam at this point. They just have to be.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot now. The failed cash in, of course. Damian Priest, man, finds a way to get another win, and Priest is so interesting, man. This run now is going to go all the way from Mania to SummerSlam, it looks like. And he never comes away from a PLE, I think, really being any stronger than he was before.
Yeah.
I just wish there was some way to both tell the story of the other stuff that's going on, vis-a-vis Punk, Drew, etc., and still let my guy sort of gain something. It just, you know what I'm saying, SGG? It never feels like we're gaining anything with him.
I know exactly what you're saying because, I mean, we all picked him to win. He did win. He retained his championship in a match that I'm sure people are going to point out the, I guess, botch or like the mistakes, but it was a good match. Both parts, the triple threat portion and the singles portion up until the triple threat. But it feels like he came away with the title, but everybody else came away sort of stronger. And I don't want to get too far away from this conversation before pointing out that Punk is diabolical, because we're talking about how he screwed over Drew and killed off the Money in the Bank briefcase and took that opportunity away from him. But he really killed two birds with one stone by doing what he did, because in keeping that championship on Priest, Seth Rollins has also been removed permanently from the World Heavyweight Championship picture, or at least as long as Priest is champion. So Punk didn't just ruin everything for Drew.
No, he screwed both of his
huge monkey wrench in Seth's plans also.
Yeah, both of his ops took L's.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a result. So yeah, you got to give credit where credit is due. No, the CM Punk thing's been a lot of fun, but now it's time to get to that action.
Yeah.
And
I understand he's been injured, but it's time.
Any major takeaways from the quote unquote main event last night or 2 nights ago?
I was shocked to see that we didn't get another debuting Bloodline member. Also shocked to see that Solo got the win over Cody, even though I picked it. You never know. But yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes. I will say, to Solo's credit, you know, you talk about NXT call ups and developing and the speed at which people develop. I think it's 2 years now for him on the main roster, or coming up on 2 years, and he's already a top guy. And even then, when he showed up at NXT, he didn't have that much experience. But forget about the moves and can he do this and is he as athletic as Jacob Fatu or whatever. Solo somehow, some way has proven, at least to me, that he has it. He has that same it factor, and that the people who are making these decisions about what roles people are going to play, they know what they're talking about. Because even that promo on SmackDown when he says, I think he says straight up, if Roman was man enough to defend this family, then he wouldn't have lost the title. So I'm going to take this Ulafala and I'm going to take Cody's title and I'm going to be the tribal chief. And if Roman has a problem, he can see me. It's just like, I don't know where this Solo came from, but I'm glad he's here because that's going to be very entertaining.
Yeah, well, yeah, now we've officially gotten there, right? This is the match that had to happen to get us to where Roman now needs to come back.
Yeah.
So
and Solo pinned the champion, so you know what that means. His one-on-one title opportunity is on the way.
So that'll be on the way. I'm guessing SummerSlam, the main event, will be old Bloodline, new Bloodline.
I think SummerSlam, the main event's going to be Solo Cody.
So you think we just go Solo Cody, and then you think they push that all the way to what? Survivor Series?
I think so. And in between Survivor Series and SummerSlam, you know, there's the Bash in Berlin, but there's also the pay-per-view that they announced in Atlanta. Bad Blood.
Could be that.
October 5th. So the Bloodline, there could be a Bloodline situation for Bad Blood to either set up War Games or to just, you know, get it out of the way so that War Games can be focused on something else. I don't know, but I am excited. And you're right. Solo's words, forget about his actions toward Paul Heyman. His words on top of all of that is gonna have consequences. It really is. And I don't know where Jimmy is. Jay is still around. Roman has to be on his way back. So Solo's gonna answer for what he's spoken to existence.
So we teased it at the beginning of the show, but didn't get much time. Have you gotten to see MJF's turn on Danny Garcia?
Were they in Buffalo again for that?
I don't think. No, that was in Chicago. Was it Chicago?
Oh, was it Chicago? Right? Okay.
Yeah. So, Emilio, let me ask you, all Emilio Wrestling. Were you surprised that they did it already? That like we all with as over as MJF is as a babyface at this moment, are you surprised that they already went?
No. It was just the way he returned with the heel tactics in the promos and just the overall bravado of what he was doing, and even some of his moveset in his match at Forbidden Door. You could just tell they need a super baddie to do like the next thing to set up for a possible another run as AEW World Champion. Because if you think about it, Adam Cole was supposed to be the heel during that whole feud that they were supposed to have. Adam Cole shatters his ankle. He's out for almost a year. Not going to happen. So who else is there to put in place for your main title as a heel other than Max?
No, you're right. And I guess I presume the main event we have to get to somehow is
Danielson and Max.
You think it's Danielson and Max at Wembley?
No. I think
Wembley's
it goes
too soon.
Wembley's too soon. So here's my predictions. Danielson wins the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, goes and faces Swerve Strickland, and then I think Danielson goes over on Swerve, and then at Wrestle Dream, which could be one of Bryan's last matches, if not his last match, Max is the opponent, and they set that up. And they do a second, and that's their rematch.
And what do you think Will Ospreay gets at Wembley?
I think
he gets Max.
What do you say, Emilio?
If it goes right, I think one of two things can happen. Either what SGG says, you can do Max because
I think that's what I would think. I would think it's Max and Will in the main event at Wembley.
It could be, or it could be Ricochet. You don't know. That's another one.
Oh yeah, I will say the eyes of the wrestling world would certainly be upon Ricochet and Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
That would be.
I think that moves the needle a little bit more in terms of dream matches and how AEW sets up certain things when they bring in these new signees over what arguably would probably be Will Ospreay's most complete feud and program in AEW against somebody like MJF for the international championship.
Well, they have to get there to. I just hope whenever they get to Will and Max, they let it go. That needs room to breathe. Wrestle Dream, for those paying attention, Wrestle Dream that was just referenced is October 12th in Tacoma, Washington.
There you go.
That's going to be Swerve and Danielson, I think.
But they very rarely do rematches, though. How many times has a champion who lost gets an immediate title opportunity in All Elite Wrestling?
Maybe they don't get there until then.
Because you know them. They always do these weird stipulations to try to get back in. They're doing it with Hangman Page right now and the Owen Hart tournament.
Guys, for more in-depth conversation and to hear this week's Dipperstein contributions, since he's been... by the way, what has he been offering? What has he been offering this plumber? Like, he couldn't have been like, hey, I texted him. He wrote, I said, hey, we're starting now, an hour ago. He wrote, okay, I have a man here. And then like half hour later, I wrote, still there? He doesn't need your help. But like, I'm sure Dip hovering in the background.
That's a fact.
Like, you can't just set up in the other room. If the guy needs you, he'll come tell you. But by the way, I've had it confirmed. Jim Scranton McGee, he could throw a baseball. He couldn't throw a football. All right? He couldn't throw a football. So not as bad as SGG, but not nearly as bad as the no mashed potatoes. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, no, the no mashed potatoes,
you're taking his Scranton card for that. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Guys, I hope all of you enjoyed this Monday drop. It had to be done this way on account of, we talked about doing this, trying this out. Also, it's my anniversary and I can't do another podcast in addition to my jobs on Monday. I even moved over the top to Tuesday this week just so I could try to be somewhat decent on the anniversary. And then Tuesday, I have a live one-ep in the city with Pete Rock and Common. So Tuesday was going to be complicated. So that's why you get this Monday edition. We hope you dug it. Patreon.com/StayMage. We have a Saturday Night's Mage event coming at you this week. Also, the Chad Gable interview is up on YouTube on Rosenberg Wrestling if you want to head over there and check that out. And if you're for some reason you're watching this on YouTube, we hope that you'll go to wherever you find podcasts and search for Cheap Heat and give us a subscription. We would love that. So no matter how you consume us, we appreciate it. Big shout out to our producer, Emilio Sparks. SGG, do me a favor and stay mage.
And take it easy, man.
Enjoy yourself.